listening, to quiet.
All right, take a look around. We live in the age of the extrovert, the outspoken, the magnetic, the flamboyant.
Two wild and crazy guys!
So where does that leave the introvert, people who prefer a more quiet, reflective life? Well, that's the question that Susan Cain is exploring in this book called Quiet, the Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking. Susan herself says that she's an introvert, a Wall Street lawyer, former Wall Street lawyer, grew up tired of being told she had to adapt and conform to the extrovert ideal, so she began to explore the advantages of quiet and thoughtful. And what she found in her research might surprise you. At least 1/3 of us are introverts, so there you go, little choice, you're born that way. And some of the most profound thinkers and creators, introverts. People like Rosa Parks, Mahatma Gandhi, Steven Spielberg. Studies show introverts can be more effective leaders than extroverts and are less likely to commit adultery or place risky bets.
So I wish you the courage to speak softly.
So the real question is, why do introverts get such a bad rap, and how can we all get along in an increasingly noisy world?
Everyone, please welcome to the show, Susan Cain. Nice to see you.
Hey, George, great to see you.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's so great to be here.
It's nice to see you. The power of the quiet. So the idea of the introvert is, and the extrovert is interesting. What makes it particularly fascinating to me is we are a culture that really celebrates the extrovert. And so when you had to walk into the story, was it really about finding the role of the introvert in the culture?
Yeah, and it was also that the celebration of the extrovert was really what drove me to write this book in the first place, because I felt that what we really need in this society is a kind of yin and yang between introverts and extroverts, and we need a balance. And I feel like we have gotten, very lopsided. And celebrating people who are very bold, very charismatic, very in the spotlight, and not
terrified of the really quiet.
Yeah, and there's a sense that people who are more reserved, more cerebral, more sensitive, more in the sidelines, that there's something that's wrong with that way of being, and instead of seeing that as a natural part of the human condition, and as one that humanity really depends on.
How many people are really one of each? Like far introvert or far extrovert?
Yeah, it's a good question. Nobody really knows exactly what the percentages are, but there are some people who feel like they're more smack in the middle of the spectrum, and there's even a word for them, and they're called ambiverts.
Ambiverts.
Ambiverts,
oh, I like that.
Yeah. And I often think that ambiverts have the best of both worlds, because it's like they have that yin and yang contained inside them.
When I took the quiz, I thought I was going to be an ambivert. I thought I was going to fit somewhere in the middle, but I'm not. I'm a full introvert, according to your quiz.
Really?
Which I can.
And did that ring true for you?
Yeah, totally. Because my default position is to kind of be alone, and even if you're in a big thumping party, it's like a lot of people, I'm sure they feel like they're alone in a room. But I'm fine with that. I just figured over the years I've learned the skills to allow me to be more extrovert. But then I took that quiz, I'm like, no, I have not grown. I am the same.
Do you feel then like you have to step outside of your normal self every day when you come on this set?
I don't think I do, but I think a long time ago I had to learn how to do it.
Yeah.
I think I had to find a way to do it and then just kind of accept what path that I happen to be on at the given time.
Right.
But I'm okay with it. But again, I'm just lucky that I was able to get away with it in this era. Is it recent that the extrovert gets celebrated, the loud gets celebrated? I know on reality shows we celebrate the worst of humanity, and they're usually the loudest, most annoying people.
And on some political shows too, where it's just like the screaming sound bites. But it's actually not that recent. So in Western society in general, we've always had this a tendency to favor action over contemplation. But until the 20th century, we did live in what historians call a culture of character, where we valued people based on what was going on inside. What were the good deeds that they performed when nobody was looking. But then what happened was, at the turn of the 20th century, we suddenly entered this world of big business, where people felt like they had to stand out in a crowd of strangers in situations like job interviews or on sales calls. And so suddenly we were in this era where people started to really admire magnetism and charisma and dominance and these kinds of qualities.
But isn't a lot of it tied to as well just the advent of the media, when newspapers became big and then ultimately radio and television? So we used to just compare ourselves to our family or our community. But now it's the entire world we relate to.
Yeah, that's such a good point, actually. And what happened was, right when we were entering this world of big business, that was exactly the era when we started to have movies and movie stars.
Right.
So, we became subject to those kinds of norms, but also people started to look at these movie stars as their role models.
Right.
And, they were the ones who could teach you how to be charismatic in your day-to-day
And
life.
thank God, because movie stars have never let us down. They are the ones, I wake up every day going, if I can't be Dennis Hopper today, I shouldn't be alive. Yeah, that's the problem, right? But I guess it also speaks to, on a cellular level, the way our brains are wired, that primally we can be reached in a very easy way, can't we? We identify with glamour.
Yeah, I think that's true, but I also think that we have the capacity to identify with all kinds of other things, too. And even the fact that if you look at earlier eras, we did have a different way of relating. So, like, for example, Abraham Lincoln, he was praised by Ralph Waldo Emerson as being a person who did not offend by superiority. So, he was a modest guy, he was an unassuming guy in his presentation, and we liked that. And nowadays, in our political candidates, we tend to respond to somebody who's a lot more, kind of big and swaggering.
That's almost because it feels like that they figured out how to reach us.
Mm-hmm.
Attack ads, in the very beginning, when you watch an attack ad at a campaign, you go, what a dick, why would they make that a campaign? But if they run them enough, it becomes true for people, right?
It does, but I still think that there is some core in ourselves that is longing for something else. And, we're starting to see it now. There really is a cultural trend where people are kind of hungering for silence and for solitude and for more simplicity.
What's amazing
because I think that part of people has not been fed.
A lot of people these days have started to talk. I'm sure they've been doing it for ages, even public figures, but they're talking about meditation now in a way that I've never seen this much. And even Howard Stern has put meditation on the map for a whole group of people who would never have thought that possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it a chance just to give your brain a place to go to reset?
I think it's a place to go to reset, and I think it's a place to kind of be away from the crowd where you have to be on all the time. I also think that texting, which on the one hand seems like the opposite of meditation, it seems part of tapping into this big fire hose of information that we're all subject to. I think part of the reason that texting is so popular is it's a way for us to connect with people without having to be on. It's asynchronous communication. You're not looking at the person at the time, and we all crave that a little bit.
I think it's amazing, actually. It allows you to stay in contact with so many people and not have to spend 45 minutes on the phone, which is the worst part. Is it different in different communities? Is one country more extroverted than another country?
Yeah, that's a good question. And one of the things that I look at in my book, I have a whole chapter where I compare traditional Far Eastern cultures with Western societies. And it's really, really different so Far Eastern cultures, they're based on the group, right? They're based on everybody getting along and harmony within the group. And that sounds like it would call for more extroversion, but it's actually the opposite, because if you want people to get along and to have harmony, it actually works better if people are more quiet and more unassuming. So traditionally in these cultures, silence has been considered a primary value. And the person who could keep their words to themselves is seen as being very wise and very judicious. Because words are seen as weapons that can hurt other people or that can get the speaker into trouble.
And if you think about even the way the adages go, in Western culture, it's the squeaky wheel gets the grease. In Chinese proverbs, the protruding nail gets hammered down. So it's two very different ways to approach this one. Who do you think is going to learn more from this? The extrovert who can't stop talking, or the introvert who doesn't say enough?
Gosh, I really honestly think both. That's not a flub, but I'm really hoping to reach both with the book.
Real pleasure. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much.
Great to see you. Susan Cain, everybody, the book here, Quiet, The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking. We'll be right back. Thank you.